Ladies and gentlemen, we have so many notes here on Nobody's Listening to our episodes of The Bad Batch. Welcome.
Yeah,
We've
it's
been
a
away for a while.
mhm. Yeah, I know you kept flaking on me, and I was just like, "Come on,
Yeah.
Matthew."
Uh-huh. Yeah, it was me. It was me. Somebody on this show's life is more important than Star Wars.
I mean, I honestly I disagree, but it does. I know it seems that way, but in my heart, it's not true.
So we're playing a little bit of catch up. I
Yes.
still think we're 2 episodes behind. We're gonna do episodes 5, 6, 7, and 8, and I think 9 and 10 are out now, or at least they're
Okay.
out as of when we're recording this.
Yeah.
We're gonna try to catch up,
Mhm.
and of course we have Mando. So if you guys
Yes.
are hearing this drop, you're like on pins and needles on your keyboard hitting refresh. We're like, "Where's their Mando episode?" It's coming.
It's
It'll
coming.
probably be here Saturday night.
Yes.
We are busy people, so give us a little bit of a break, but we will have thoughts
Oh,
on the
yes.
Mandalorian
Oh,
season
yes.
or season 3, episode 1. But for now, we're going to talk about Bad Batch, episode 5, 6, 7, and 8. We start with episode 5 called Entombed.
AKA Omega Jones and the Lost Tallneck.
I do have a special request for you
Okay.
on this.
Oh,
So when you discuss this episode, when you start
okay.
talking about treasure, when you
Okay.
use the word treasure, you have to say it like Omega. Treasure! You must do that.
Trisha!
Yeah. Because that's like a thing. Even in the previous episode, it's just drilled in my mind now. Omega going, treasure, Hunter, let's go look for treasure. It's like,
Yeah, she's a little twee in these 2 episodes. Well, all 4 of these 3 of these episodes. I love Omega, but she's a little too wide-eyed and, like, for me at the moment. I mean, I think the world is going to crush that out of her spirit very soon,
yeah.
so it's gonna be treasure pretty soon, but for now, yeah, yeah, mhm.
She's gonna wish she was just going on these fun treasure expeditions soon. But
Yeah, yeah.
Entombed, what's this one all about?
All right. So this one picks up with Omega and Wrecker scavenging in a junkyard on Mantel. When she happens upon this strange oval-shaped object, they go back to Sid's little bar, and the pirates.
One-eyed Willie's doubloon.
Yes, 100%. 100%. I mean, as someone who loves an adventure story, like, there are definitely aspects of this episode I do enjoy. Also, as someone who plays video games, there's some aspects of this I enjoy, but we'll get into it. So Fee, the pirate Fee Genoa, is at the bar and she recognizes the compass. And together, she and Omega basically like talk the crew into going on to this hunting for treasure called the heart of
Treasure.
the heart of the mountain. Um, when they get there, it's just like this wasteland planet, and they make their way into the mountain, solve some puzzles, fight a monster, and eventually find the treasure. However, when Fee removes it, it awakens a freaking kaiju mech that they thought was the
What?
mountain. That's
It's
yes,
so weird.
when it looks just like a tall neck from her Horizon Zero Dawn, but whatever. And it starts like burninating the countryside, and they have no choice but to take the heart out, destroying the mech and unfortunately the treasure as well. And they head back empty-handed.
Yeah, and Fee tells Omega and the Bad Batch crew, like, finding the heart of the mountain. It's legendary, right? It
Yeah.
goes back decades or hundreds of years or thousands or however. And like, she makes it sound like it's going to bring more riches than even Han Solo can dream of, and he can dream of quite a bit.
Mm.
So this is this is a straight up adventure tale.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I was kind of noticing sort of the dynamic between Fee and Omega is very similar. And this is something we talked about how like the these animated series kind of start kiddie and then they sort of grow, but there's also this sort of dynamic that is quite similar to the one that Ezra had with Hondo. I feel like they're kind of emulating that same sort of friendship and to some degree kind of like swashbuckly but also loss of innocence. So I'm interested to see where this is going. It is kind of fun to see her like this kid that grew up on a planet where all she was inside constantly because it was just like rain and storm outside, getting out and seeing the world and all of that there is to do out there, and like her desire for adventure is very charming. But I feel like it's a setup for a loss of innocence that we're going to be seeing sort of play out this season.
Yeah, and I make fun of the fact that treasure like constantly in all these episodes, but I like the Omega character a lot.
Yeah,
She's one. I
me
think I
too.
even said she's one of my favorite characters on the
Whoa.
show,
Mm.
and I can imagine being a kid at that age and getting to do all this crazy stuff. I feel like that character is kind of like the vessel through which
Oh yeah.
us, if we were like 8 years old watching this and being and loving Star Wars and be like, oh my gosh, look how cool this would be. We're going on a Goonies esque treasure
Yeah.
hunt, sort of thing. And I liked that component. I liked all the homages. Even the score was aping Indiana Jones. Like it was
Yeah. Oh
John
yeah.
Williams. The animation was great. My problem with this episode, in taken in a vacuum, it's fine for what
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
It's a fine episode. Um, it doesn't seem, at least now, to mean anything.
Yeah.
Now, maybe this giant mech, and I saw an actual theory on YouTube. Someone was saying that they think it's something created by the Zetho from Jedi Fallen
Yeah.
Order.
Yeah,
I
I
actually
saw
saw
this
that.
too.
I
Yes.
saw that theory, and I was like, "Well, that's cool." But will
Mhm.
they do anything with it, or is that just kind of like a nod to people who really love the video game? Like, hey, it could be this. Isn't that cool? I
Yeah.
feel like this is just kind of like a throwaway episode, I guess, because
Yeah.
especially when we talk about 7 and 8, which is what we'll mainly be talking about on the show. That's why we're gonna
Mhm.
fly through these first two here,
Yeah.
probably. That this just feels kind of like eh.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, I think it's, like you said, a perfectly fun episode in a vacuum. And unless we circle back, it is kind of it in an we don't get that many episodes this season. So there needs to be like major character development or something to really make these side quests worthwhile. The conspiratorial part of me feels like the potential of this being like Zetho related means at some point we're gonna get some freaking Cal Kestis, which is like the thing that I want the most is for him to be
Mm.
pulled into this universe and into the live action.
Where
Um,
what would he would have been? Because this is shortly after Order
yeah.
66, right? So yeah, I'm just trying to, in my head, I'm trying to remember like where is he in the timeline at this point? Because when did
Yeah.
Fallen Order take place? That was 5 years after, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Or
so
maybe I'm
he'd be
getting
like
mixed up.
on that scrap planet somewhere, right?
Yeah,
So,
like Wrecker just walks into him or something. He's like, hey man,
yeah.
and walks away. Like,
Yeah, I guess it would be a few unless we do a time jump or something, it would probably be a couple seasons in. But I mean, like he's existing in this world. Like in the next episode, we're gonna see one of the other Padawans, right? So he'd be about the same age as
yeah,
what's I want to say Gurgi, but that's not right. Gurgi is
Gunji,
Gunji. Gurgi Gurgi is
Gunji.
from the Black Cauldron. Sorry. Wrong Disney property.
Yeah,
But yeah, I think the Zepho stuff was like probably my favorite when I saw that sort of conspiracy. And then I went back and like looked at the guard shape of the Guardian's head in Fallen Order, and it's the same as this mech. That's
yeah,
cool. And I like the deepening of the lore and pulling in some of that stuff, I think is really interesting
yeah,
because I do think the future of Star Wars has to move away from some of the central like Skywalker legacy kind of stuff. So I love that. I love that. I think that's really cool.
yeah. And I think the only issue I had story wise with this episode is like I was like, okay, so they remove this heart of the mountain and it turns
Mhm.
the thing on. And then they put it back in to turn it off, but then it just immediately melts and destroys itself. I'm like,
Right.
wouldn't that be what happened
Isn't it
thousands of
just
years ago when this thing was built? Like, why didn't it melt back then? It seemed too easy and convenient
right?
in my mind.
No, I agree. Like it should have just been the on-off switch. But I
Yeah,
guess maybe because they didn't want to leave that technology sort of just like sitting out there as like a plot
yeah,
hole.
I get it. It's one of those things that just kind of annoys me. I'm like, all right,
Yeah.
okay, Dave, all
But
right,
it's also weirdly I mean, I guess I shouldn't say it's not Star Warsy because Star Wars has had some very outlier strange episodes, but it didn't like have a Star Warsy feel to me for there to be like this burninating kaiju mech.
yeah, yeah. It's weird.
It's
It's a
weird.
little strange,
A
but
little strange. But
overall, it's
yeah,
fine in a
it's a
vacuum.
fine.
I don't hate it, but
I mean,
the
I will
animation was great on it, though. I thought the animation was incredible with all the shadows and stuff. They really
mhm,
made it feel like an adventure homage.
for sure. And I love anything with like a puzzle, like National Treasure style puzzle in it. That I
Yep.
mean, those are my favorite kind of games as well. I will say that it's just this season is very strange how tonally sort of whiplashy it is. You
Yeah.
know, to go like it's like very serious and then very goofy and then very serious. Like it's hard to kind of get a feel for this season a little bit.
It's almost like Dave Filoni wants to go fully dark with it, but
Mhm.
then it's like it is a kids show,
Yeah.
so we can't. I don't want to like
Yeah.
horribly depress the kids every single week. So hey, we gotta have a fun adventure here and
You
there, and
gotta keep it light about in the cartoon about genocide. I mean, you can't
yes,
go too heavy with that. You gotta
yes,
keep it light.
yes. Okay, so Entombed. That's what we thought on that. Let's get into episode 6, Tribe.
All right. So, Tribe, this one starts with the gang arriving at the Vanguard Access smuggling operation to deliver some, I think they're like codes or something to the smugglers. And of course, Omega always getting into trouble. And this time she overhears like a whimpering Wookiee and investigates and discovers that there is a young Wookiee that is being essentially trafficked by some droids. So she rescues him, and it turns out that this young Wookiee is actually Gunji, a Jedi.
Yay!
Yes,
I
who
like
people
Gunji.
yeah, of course, he's a fan fave. Everybody likes. He's a great
Love
little
that
youngling.
tooth.
I love that too. So he basically got popped on his way back to trying to return home to Kashyyyk. So they
God
agree.
popped.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Uh, so they like fight with the droids and then agree to take him home. And discover when they get there that the planet is like being just basically deforested by the Empire with the help of the Trandoshans. Um, and they like witness some of this that are like rolling through there with Empire tanks, and they're about to destroy some like especially looking sacred stones. And Gunji can't hold himself back, and he ends up fighting them and stopping them. But in the process, reveals that he is a Jedi, and there's some evidence left behind that show that there is a Jedi on the planet. So they head off to the village, but with the Trandoshans following them, they're like raising the forest in order to find this
Mm.
Jedi.
I'm gonna pause real quick. I'm gonna tell
Yeah.
you an interesting fact about myself.
Ooh, okay, let's do it.
I love trees, and not in like the dendrophilia type of way. I just love trees.
I mean, we're not here to yuck your yum, sir. You want to hump a tree, do you,
Well,
boo?
I absolutely love trees, and anytime I see any Star Wars media where the Empire is destroying trees,
Yeah.
it makes me hate the Empire. Like oh yeah,
Really?
I hate it because I love trees. And fun fact, on Monday, like I have one tree at my house, one tree. It is not anything special. It's just a tree. It's my tree. And on Monday, I finally named the tree. I'm like, I'm gonna name him Henry. Henry the tree. That's
Oh,
my tree.
I like Henry.
On
Did
fucking
somebody
Tuesday,
No.
on
Oh,
on
no.
fucking Tuesday, yeah, this is just,
No.
devastating to me. I hear, like, a whole bunch of people outside, on my street, and I hear "Zzz," and
Oh,
I look out
Henry.
the window, and I swear to God, Lincoln Parks and Rec coming down the street, just chopping branches off of all the trees, and they just
Oh my
chopped
god.
Henry to shit. Like,
Oh,
he's a
Henry.
yeah, oh, Henry, he's a shell of what he once was.
Oh,
So
no.
I just named him, and I was like Henry, and then the next day, boom.
At least they didn't
So
cut him down. I was worried you were gonna tell me you came out and they were just like,
no,
right,
but
cutting him right off at the
no, but
trunk.
I told my fiance, I'm like, if Henry dies because these Jahoos, that's an inside joke. If these Jahoos did something, cut the branch wrong and it gets like a fungal infection or whatever. If Henry dies, there's going to be hell to pay. So
Oh. So
so
you were
yeah.
a formerly or you were originally a California native.
Mhm.
Did you, while you were here, experience the wonder of the redwoods? Did you go to
No,
them?
no, we never went up north. I was always in Southern California, but I did spend a lot of
Oh,
time in Big
buddy.
Bear and all
Okay.
the surrounding areas. My mom and I
Well,
used to go up and collect pine cones up there, and then we
oh.
would turn them into Christmas ornaments. So
Well, someday when you come visit me, I will take you to the redwoods. Specifically, we will go to the Avenue of the Giants where they actually shot Star Wars.
I would love that.
You will go to the Ewok forest, my friend. That's
Okay.
my promise to you.
All right.
Hmm. Especially now that you like trees. I
I
like
love
trees too.
trees.
I
I
love
love them. I was
trees too.
probably a druid in a past life or something.
Archeo Buvek Geister. All right, where were we? Okay, so they're raised in the forest, and
Bastards.
I know they are bastards. I'm so glad we're finally on the same side about the Empire.
Just in this one instance.
I'll take it. I'll
Leave
take it.
Kashyyyk alone.
Yes, I agree. Okay, so basically they go to this village, and the Bad Batch agrees to help the Wookiees fight back against the Trandoshans. And so with the assistance of the trees themselves, who come up with the plan, they are the A team of Kashyyyk. Apparently, they have
Yeah.
the plan that comes together.
Using the
Um,
Force. Gungi
using the
using the
force.
Force to commune with the trees of Kashyyyk.
Correct. So with them and with the help of the hideous Kenraths, do not like, do not want, not happy about these arachnid bastards.
Oh.
They gruesomely, oh, like you don't know that this is trauma for me. Like you don't constantly send me the most upsetting videos.
This last shot where the guy is screaming in
Oh,
terror, I was like, I thought of
oh,
you. I
oh,
thought of you.
no wonder you've been wanting to record this so bad. You've been over there rubbing your hands together, waiting for this. This is so, again, children's show. This guy screams as a horde of spiders, like, essentially tear him apart
Yeah.
slightly off screen.
And this isn't just like a little this is a scream
No!
of sheer terror. Like
Yes!
I was shocked. I was like, wow. Shit got real
Yes!
for that guy.
Yes, like last week it's like goofy antics in the kaiju mech. This week it's someone being torn limb from freaking eight-legged freaks. I don't
Yeah.
understand this show.
Yeah.
It is crazy. So they successfully beat the Trandoshans and the Imperial troopers for now. And the episode closes out with Hunter kind of watching Omega and Gunji like communing with the trees and thinking about what it means for her to be a child and what he wants for her in this world, which I think is like an
Yeah.
important Hunter moment. I know we
They're
don't care about
both
Hunter.
kids, but they don't get to be.
No, 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 no. Yeah. So I would say this is a bad episode for the Bad Batch, even though they win, because they now have a whole new set of enemies that they're dealing with. Like, it used to just be the Empire that wanted them, but now they've run afoul of the Vanguard Axis, and, like, I'm assuming by proxy, the Pikes, the Hutts, the whole gamut of underworld
Yeah.
shit.
Trandoshans don't like them now.
No, they do not.
This is. I think this episode is important. Number one, Gunji. If anyone, we talk about this character. This character was in the Clone Wars. There's a really cool episode. I can't remember if it was a two-parter or what, but it was like Yoda takes all the younglings to
Hmm.
the planet to get their, create their lightsabers and stuff. And Gunji
Yeah.
makes his out of like Kashyyyk wood from like the tree. That's like his unique thing. He's just a
Yeah.
cool character. It was cool to see him back. I think this episode is important because I think this is the episode where Dave Filoni's like, Omega's force sensitive. She's force sensitive.
Oh,
She's up there with the tree.
interesting.
She's got her hand up. She's meditating on the ship, trying to commune with whatever. She can't do it yet, but I bet you this is the setup that she is force sensitive. That's what I got from it.
I think you're totally right. Like, I mean, it's kind of a sad moment when you see Gunji having to look to other people to see what his traditions are because he was like essentially snatched as a kid by the Jedi. Complicated feelings about that.
Yeah,
But you see him essentially doing the same thing that she's doing where she's looking to watch them. So I think I was kind of focused on Gunji, but now that you're pointed out, like, what is she experiencing in that moment? She probably is force sensitive.
yeah.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, I think she's force sensitive, and it's actually I saw a YouTuber who was talking about this as well because he also thinks that she's force sensitive, and I think we've discussed this in previous episodes where it seems like they're showing hints of it. But he actually noted that every person in the Bad Batch has a unique trait. Like their genetic
Oh,
thing makes them good at sort of one thing, right?
yeah.
And she is technically one of the Bad Batch, and this guy's theory is her unique thing is she's going to turn out to be force sensitive,
Awesome.
and
Another little baby Jedi. That's so
that'll be a
awesome.
thing. So yeah, I like this episode. It's not a bad episode, but I think we're going to talk about 7 and 8, and these are in different categories in terms of like
Yeah.
wow factor and
Yeah.
uh, episode 7 8. seem clearly designed for adults.
You
Like
think?
adults. Like it's not for not treasure any longer. It's hey,
Ugh.
we're going to talk about the inner workings of the Senate and how bills get done. You know, Schoolhouse
Yes.
Rock sort of shit, but for adults.
This is
Um,
schoolhouse death metal. This
yeah,
is some grim shit.
yeah. But I like this episode, and I
Yeah.
think we forgot to mention that when Gunji gets back, because they're trying to take him to his village or his clan, or whatever. When they get there, it's completely burned to the ground.
Yeah.
So as far as we know, his entire clan is
Yeah.
dead and gone,
Yep.
all because of those goddamn Trandoshans, who are mortal enemies of the Wookiee. And
Yep.
if you remember anything from that bad Book of Boba Fett show,
I try
when
not to,
Black
but yes.
Chrysanthemum rips the
Yes.
arms off that Trandoshan in
Right.
the I don't know what that place would be called, kind of like a casino
Uh-huh.
that's being run by Flashdance. So yeah,
Ugh, don't get me started on the use of, like, the, disposability of flashbands. That just makes me so mad.
I know she was a cool character too.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
made so many bad decisions on that, but we'll
Yeah.
talk about that more when on our Mando season 3 episode
Oh,
1.
lord.
So we'll talk about that.
So before I move on, I think there's like one other sort of character point I just want to, because I feel like even though this didn't really add to the larger story that we're about to go into, which feels like the actual A plot of the season, I think you see a little bit of movement in terms of character stuff, specifically around Hunter and his need to, like, I think he's kind of been missionless up until this point. Like, he obviously is trying to protect Omega, but I think seeing her and having that moment where he is thinking about her being a child, how much longer can he stay out of the fray and not change the world to allow her to be the child that he wants her to be able to be? And so I think this is something we've been seeing with the other characters as well, where they're setting up sort of like emotional stakes for them or some sort of driving sort of character motivation, and it's subtle, but I think it's happening here with Hunter. We'll see how that turns out. I don't know.
Hunter, the most milquetoast character of the entire
I
show.
know. Even his like character beat is kind of whack and boring and basic, but it's there. So I just wanted to
Yeah,
point it out.
yeah,
All
yeah.
right, let's get into this good stuff.
Oh yeah. Episode 7, the clone conspiracy.
Oh, okay. So I kind of just smooshed these together. Is that okay with you if we talk about them as
Yeah,
one? Okay,
yeah.
cool.
Episode 8, truth and consequences.
Yes, yes. Okay.
Spoiler: my boy comes back and does some shit.
I know you were just like when he rose out of the ground, I was thinking Matthew just left the
I was
planet.
orgasming furiously. Yes, yes.
Seriously. Okay. So, all right. So we pick things up on Coruscant, which is rapidly becoming my favorite locale in the Star Wars world. All the good shit happens here.
It's cool.
It is
The
cool.
whole plan. That's the thing. Like, I don't think it's really explained super well to people. The entire planet is one giant city.
Yeah.
Like, there's no like parks and rivers and mountains. Like, it's all one gigantic city, and that's so cool.
It is really cool and weird, and I keep hoping. I think at one point they were gonna do some show that was like specifically about like the lower levels of Coruscant, and I'm like,
Yeah.
yes, bring it
That
on.
was George Lucas. He was gonna do an entire show.
Oh,
I think, like, did when he sold, Star Wars to Disney, he had over, I think, over 100 scripts written and finished. It was like the
right.
underworld. It was all gonna be about the underworld of Coruscant and stuff, and then Disney, when they bought it, they're like, "We don't wanna do it," and
Well, shit.
shelved them. So,
Although I don't know, maybe they'll pull them off the shelf at some point. You never know. They got to keep.
they
This is a
they
cash cow that they got to keep on milking. Like everything's gonna
seriously,
get
I
made.
mean, can you imagine if Disney came back like Mr. Iger, Mr. Iger. I'm not on a first name basis with you. I know you listen to the show. Let me throw this idea out to you. You want to get a lot of Star Wars fans back in your good graces. Reach out to George Lucas and just say, "Hey, we want to partner with you on bringing this stuff to the screen, and maybe we want to have you direct an episode, one episode of this extended Underworld TV show, maybe the pilot episode.
Yeah.
We will promote the hell out of it. George Lucas, the creator's coming back. This is all based on your thing. You can, work on kind of like you did with Clone Wars. Work on it with
Yeah.
Dave Filoni. Let everybody else make the thing, but you throw in your input. Boom, there you go.
Yeah. And
Star
bring
Wars
your
fans would
daughter
be
too.
over the moon.
And
Over the moon.
bring your daughter too, because those like Darth
Yeah.
Maul episodes that she did were so good.
Yes. Bring
So
George Lucas back into the fold. Olive branch. Extend an olive branch to him.
I support it. All right, Bobby, you heard us. You heard it here. Make it happen.
Yeah.
Also, like ticket prices, can we knock those down a little bit? Okay, thanks. All right. All right. So yeah, we pick things up on Coruscant. We're sort of in the aftermath of the destruction of Topoka City and its subsequent cover up. It was,
Just
you
a
know,
bad storm, Rachel. It
right.
was just a bad
Yes.
storm.
Just a city that literally was in a constant state of storm, just destroyed by a storm.
Well,
Very
here's the thing.
believable stuff.
In this episode, you find out it was actually the entire planet. Every city was destroyed, not just the one with the clones. It was every city.
It's so grim. It's so
Real
grim.
bad storm.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah, that's a bad storm. So some of the clones who were there for it are specifically Slip and Kate are starting to have some feelings about it naturally, not just because of
Love
what they
this.
did,
Oh, I
but
love this scene.
yes, but like the fact that they did the mission and that there is a cover up, which implies that they did something wrong, right? And that they
Mhm.
followed bad orders. And so they're ready to turn whistleblower. But before they can do that, Kate is shot down by a sniper. However, Slip escapes. He slips through the cracks and gets away. So in the Senate, we cut to the Senate. I can't believe how much I love the politics of the show. Like it's
Yeah.
ridiculous. I
Real,
when I
real
see the Senate, I'm like, yes, ASMR for my eyes.
Yeah, real quick before we move on, that like sort of opening scene with those two clones talking, I love how
Yeah.
it was shot.
Yeah.
It's like the camera's behind you, see like the side, like they're hiding because they don't want to be seen or anything. It's all
Uh-huh.
dark and murky, and it feels like something out of like a murder mystery thriller or
It's
a
very Cloak
spy
and
thing or something.
Dagger. Yes,
It's
yes.
super cool.
Yes, definitely. I mean, the direction on this show is pretty fantastic,
Yep.
period. And these episodes, like they just crackle. I feel like they just crackle with tension and plot twists and just every energy. It's just really, really these are great.
Mhm.
So, okay, in the Senate, Vice Admiral Rampart is putting forth his initiative to replace the clone army with with actually a conscripted army. The only person really opposing him, because of course, the banking planets are like, yes, gimme, 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 um, is Senator Chuchi from, I think, Pantora? Like,
Yeah, I
I'm
can't
like,
remember. I can't remember exactly, but I
mm,
love her. I
yeah,
love this
Pantora.
senator. The
Yeah,
senator is
she's
incredible.
awesome. Yes. So she's loyal to the clones because they fought so hard to protect her planet, Pantora. And she wants to see them taken care of after their service. And so she's like in the Senate trying to basically advocate for them. And Rampart's just like like being a condescending prick. And so she
Yep.
agrees to go meet with the clones and find out what they need. And what they need is to have a freaking job and not be pushed out of service because they were literally cloned to do that. It's also where she catches wind of what actually happened on in Topoka City and I guess the whole planet when she meets Slip and she decides she needs to like get him to testify because if this is true, then like Rampart is very, very evil, which we know he is. Um, Unfortunately, this does not go great for Slip and he is assassinated.
Yeah. Now, what I think is really interesting about this, and I think maybe it was episode 2 or 3. I can't remember what they call like the some sort of defense bill or something. There's like a clone trooper sitting at a table talking to the guy while they're eating, and he's like, "Hey, I see that defense, you know, basically stormtrooper bill to replace us is coming up for a vote again."
Hmm.
And what you're sort of like, this is what's sort of in the weeds because I don't think like an 8 or 9 year old kid would have any idea what is actually going on because they're like, well, why does this bill why does it impact clones so much? Well, it impacts the clones so much because they're all going to die out. They have accelerated aging, right?
Hmm.
And now the war is quote unquote over, even though that there are these little rebellions popping up. Saw Gerrera is out there, making shit happen, and these clones want to be part of it. But you're like, why wouldn't the Empire want to keep these awesome, amazing clones who can actually hit their shots? Why wouldn't they want to keep them? Well, because they are a danger to the Empire, right? You want to replace them with quote unquote recruits, and all these like little details of like, well, why would this faction want this bill? I think this would be lost to anybody who's not an adult sort of watching this.
Why are the clones a threat? Well, that's what I don't understand. Is it just because there's so many of them? Because someone had control of the production of them? Like, what? Why are they? I feel like having to force people into military service as opposed to like breeding them to be loyal and having control of their genome would be the benefit. I don't actually understand.
Well, I know that they've shown throughout canon multiple times when the clones are, look at Rex for example.
Yeah.
Their chips can be removed, right? And
Right. Right.
these,
Right.
and the whole thing is like they want to kill all these clones off because if it is exposed at what actually happened, that this
Got
was
it.
all orchestrated by the Emperor,
Right. Right.
to
Right.
do all
Right.
this, then the Republic, which is still the emperor still needs the republic right now. This is early on. This isn't, we're not at Star Wars, right? A New Hope, when he's like, the emperor
Right.
has dissolved the Senate. He needs all of these people to stick together because he doesn't have his own army. He's destroyed
Mm,
Camino. He can't replace them with new clones. These
got it.
clones are going to aged out. He has to have a new military that's under his control with,
Right.
propagandist recruits that will do
Mm.
whatever he wants them to do.
Got it. Got it. Yeah. So speaking of Rex, um, basically,
Most underrated character in Star Wars, Rex.
That's a good. What? Who is the most underrated character in Star Wars? That's actually a really good
He's
question.
up there. He's up there.
Yeah. I mean, he's definitely one of those ones that whenever he shows up, you're like, Rex! He's like the
Yeah.
norm of Star Wars at this point. So Chuche is being hunted by the same assassin. They take out her guards. It's looking like it's a wrap for her when suddenly, out of nowhere, Rex, who was there to actually meet Slip, rescues her and captures the assassin. And it is revealed that he is, dun 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 dun, a clone. But not a clone
Yeah.
like we've seen before. He calls himself a believer.
I'm a
Yeah.
believer.
Woo! And then commits suicide. I'm like, what the fuck am I watching?
Yeah, yeah. He bites down on the pill and kills himself in front of everybody. I'm like, holy shit. Like, this is
Okay,
getting real.
I need you to be like, picture this in your mind. You're like little toddler Maddie. Okay, you're sitting there. You got your bowl of Fruit Loops. You're putting on your Saturday morning cartoons, and a clone kills himself. Like, what is baby Maddie feeling in this moment?
I mean, baby Matty saw a lot of hard stuff when he was when he
Yeah,
was
okay.
but
Fair,
but
fair,
I
fair.
think if I was a normal kid, I'd probably just be shocked.
Yeah,
This reminds me of.
yeah.
I'll actually give you a good example of this. So when I was a kid, gosh, I don't know if you've ever read Fearful Symmetry or Craven's Last Hunt, is what it's.
Uh-uh.
It's a very famous Spider-Man arc. It's like
Oh, got it.
It's six issues. Came out like 1987, so I would have been like 6 years old at the time when this was coming out. I highly recommend if you have a library near you to get this trade paperback, or maybe I'll just give you mine when you come out here in May.
Perfect.
Um, you read this and you go all the way through, and a character shoots himself with a shotgun at the
Oh
very end.
my god.
And that is how the comic ends. And
Oh
I
my
remember, and
god.
you see blood and everything, and
Yeah.
when I was a kid, I remember being like, am I reading something that I should not be? Like, this seems too adult. I remember that feeling of like, whoa, this isn't just Spider-Man swinging around fighting the Rhino and then he gets locked up and taken away to jail. Like, this is a
Yeah.
very mentally taxing thing. I mean, it was like a dark adult sort of thing. I mean, Spider-Man dies in it, and all this. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Um, I'd imagine that's what this would kind of feel like in a way,
Right.
if you're just watching like, I can't. People are killing themselves left and right. Where first we got spiders killing people, now we got
Yeah.
people killing themselves.
I mean, we got that clone pushed off the edge of a cliff. We got spider
Yeah,
murder. We've got this. I mean, I understand. Again, this is a cartoon about a genocide, but and as an adult, I'm not like freaked out by it. But then I have these moments when, Omega's talking about Trisha, where I'm like, oh, right, this is not for 40-year-olds. This is actually supposed to
yeah,
be for all ages. And
yeah.
that is a pretty intense scene. Um, But yeah, I was very, very excited to see Rex show up here. This show is doing a very good job with its cameos generally, I think, in that does sort of the Andor thing where it like just sort of has people show up where they make sense as opposed to being like razzle dazzle, guess it's Han Solo, everybody, you know.
Yeah, and what I loved about this episode, no Bad Batch in it at all. They're
I
not
mean,
even in this, and I love the little, like, little call outs to fans of, like, Clone Wars, like,
yeah.
when Chi-Chi's like, "Where are we?" And they're in that garage, "Well, it's the Martez sisters'
I
garage from Clone Wars." He's
know.
like, "Oh, they're not here, but they're friends of mine. They're gonna let me hang out here for a bit." It's just like all these little things. It's like if you've watched all of it, it means a lot. And
Yeah.
if you haven't watched it, you're just like, oh, he's just got some friends. You know, it's natural
Mhm.
progression of the world rather than, like you said, force feeding it. Like, hey, the world is super small. This giant galaxy, everybody runs into each other.
Right.
It makes sense in this.
Yeah. That always drives me crazy. I always think about I love these sort of like B movie style Star Wars books. There's what's one called Maul Unleashed where he's like in a prison that transforms and turns into a fight club. It's terrible, but I loved it. But at one point, Han Solo and Chewie show up, and I'm just like, what are we doing? Why are they here?
Yeah.
You're actually breaking this for me a little bit. So
Have you read Lords of the Sith?
I have not.
You
Do
need
I
to read
need to?
that.
I do.
Yes, you need to
Is it
put that
kind?
at the top of your list.
All right, I'm actually literally gonna write it in the notes here. Lords.
Lords of the Sith. I don't know
Okay,
if it's technically canon
that's
anymore.
fine. That's fine.
It is incredible. it's
Okay.
it's all about. I'll just give you the quick setup. Darth Vader and Emperor Palpatine crash land on a planet and must survive.
Oh my god, it's like the
I
odd couple in space. Like,
I
what?
will. That's all I'll say.
Oh my god. Okay, 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 okay. All right, excellent. I mean, is it too much for me to hope that Dr. Afro will show up in any of these live action things because I
I
love
hope
her
so.
so
Dr. Aphra is an
much.
awesome character,
Yes, she's the
and
best.
I have her first appearance in comic book form in like perfect condition. So if she does, I'm selling that comic book because I'm going to get a lot of money for it.
You're gonna
But
be
yeah,
able to buy Henry a friend.
yes, yes. So yeah, Dr. Aphra is awesome. That we could go on a maybe that'll be a show we do sometime,
Yeah.
spotlighting characters like unknown characters in the Star Wars universe
Yeah.
that are really cool. But yeah, I hope
Definitely.
so.
Let's do some deep dives on some yeah, secondary
Like,
characters would be
wouldn't it
awesome.
have been awesome if instead of Fee, they were in that bar and it's Dr. Aphra?
Oh I would
Like,
love to see Omega and Dr. Aphra together. That would be
how cool would
amazing.
that be? And it turns out that she's going there to find it because, I don't know, Vader or something. She's on
Yeah,
a task for Vader, and you don't even have to see Darth Vader or anything like that, but just to know, like,
we would
oh,
know. We
what
would know.
like a
Yeah.
one and done. I mean, that would have been, oh man, see now it's like a missed opportunity. Now my creative
Yeah.
mind's going. I'm just like, hire me, Lucasfilm, hire me,
Bob, remember we were talking earlier about the ticket prices and also that spinoff? Can we also get some
hire,
jobs up in here?
hire me. Come on, just as a consultant.
Right? Right. All right. So let's see. Where were we? Okay. So the
He just
assassin
committed
killed himself.
suicide.
Yes, yes, yes. Fuck, where were we in my notes though? Um, right.
Yes.
Sorry.
You're
I have a
fine. You're
lot
fine.
of notes, all right? All
Well,
right.
there's a lot to talk about with these episodes.
Yes. Okay. So, yes. So he commits suicide. That's the end of episode 7. And then we pick up. Saw the picture for episode 8, and it was like of the Bad Batch, and I was like, no, because
Did
I
you
thought they were gonna.
immediately watch this right after? Because
Uh,
I finished 7. I'm like, I'm going right into 8.
pretty
Okay.
much. But like the episode picture was of the Bad Batch, and I
Yeah.
was so invested in what I had just seen. I was like, do not take me on a pod race. Okay, I do not want to do this. I need to know what is happening with these freaking clone suicide bombers. Like, ah.
Believers.
So, fortunately, it is a continuation of this amazing story that's been set up. Rex essentially he enlists the Bad Batch to retrieve data that is on Rampart's ship because before Slip died, he let them know that there was still footage secreted away on his ship of the footage of the actual attack on Topico City, Tipaco City, whatever. So they go on a mission to do this while Chuchi continues to track down people who will stand with her against Rampart. And this includes Senator Bertoni, who was the former senator of Camino when it was still a thing. And together, her and Omega are able to talk her in eventually to testifying. And in the process, Omega reveals herself to be a clone, which I feel is a terrible idea.
Yeah,
This
but
stuff with
she's a
her
kid.
is, yeah, she is a kid, but like,
Kids say stupid things. Like,
yeah, Bertoni's an interesting character though. I'm actually really interested in her because she's kind of chaotic neutral. Like, I have no idea where she's gonna land in things. I think
yeah,
she's like a survivor, and we've seen her pick the wrong side many times, but now she's also the side that she picked like genocided her whole planet. Her whole
yeah,
planet is gone. So I feel like she's like a free agent in a way that is interesting and sort of opaque to me. So I'm very interested in her. What about you?
yeah. I agree 100%. I think she comes across at first, like to me, when I first watched it, like, does she not even care? Like,
Yeah.
does she not care that any of this stuff happened? She's like, yeah, there's barely any of us left anymore. Like, why do I need to help? Kind of thing. But I mean, if that happened to my people on
Yeah.
my planet, I'd be like, fuck yeah, I'm testifying. And I'd probably see Emperor Palpatine rise up, like, I'm going. I'm
Yeah.
taking off. I'm taking off. But
I
they
know.
have reason to be scared, right? They have
Yeah.
reason to not want to testify or cross any of these people.
Yeah. And there's a sense of, like, deep paranoia that, like, everybody's watching everybody. Like, you have to be so, so careful. We saw it with Mon Mothma a bit, and I think she at least had some allies, whereas Bertoni is very, like, somewhere in the
Yeah.
gray area.
And they're doing a really great job in Star Wars right now of pitting those sort of altruistic characters who are
Mhm.
good, right? Like
Yeah.
Chi and the Bad Batch and Omega. They're just
Yeah.
pure good. There's no
Yeah.
bad ones among them. Well, Crosshair maybe, but we'll. uh, by the way, where's my boy Crosshair?
Were you
Crosshair
sure the
disappeared.
assassin was gonna be him? I was totally convinced that Crosshair was the assassin.
I thought, yeah. I mean, he was in like different sort of costuming, but I was like, well, yeah, it's gonna be Crosshair. But then he started missing too many shots, and
And
I
you're
was
like, "It
like,
ain't no Crosshair."
Crosshair. Um, but like these altruistic characters who are just pure good, they are fighting for what's right, and then they meet other characters who are like, I've lived in this world. You got a lot to learn. Like
Yeah.
it's not as cut and dry. Like j- being on the side of good is not necessarily good for me.
Right.
For my
Right.
life and for me to
Yeah.
continue breathing. And then you come across, like, by the time we get to the end of this, where
Whew.
hard lessons are learned.
Whew. Bertoni knew what she was talking about. She probably should have stayed out of it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think it's interesting because you see kind of the hope that maybe like Omega's like she's naive, but she's also so hopeful. I think there's some desire for that to be true. And so that's kind of one of her powers is she can her strong sense of empathy and hope, I think is like it's infectious. For
I
better or for
wonder
worse.
if I wonder, will they ever do something where she kind of turns to the dark side? Like if they reveal that she's force sensitive, right? And
Yeah.
she gets so beaten down by the
Ooh.
constant losses that she eventually just goes evil. Would they do that? I don't know if
Um,
Dave Filoni would, but that'd be an interesting turn for her.
we
And then
still
she'd
have
have to go against the
Ahsoka.
Bad Batch.
So they still have Ahsoka. I could see her having kind of like an emo arc, right? She's still pretty preteeny. Like maybe she gets 15, 16, gets a little emo, and then like is drawn into the dark side because she's force sensitive briefly.
We'll
I don't
see.
know. We'll see. We shall see. So eventually they do get Bertoni to come with them to confront Rampart in the Senate, and Chuchi confronts him. She has her testify. Um, like people are kind of listening, but also there's not really any evidence to back it up. And so it seems like it's going Rampart's way until at the last minute, the Bad Batch come through with the evidence, and the entire Senate witnesses footage of the city being destroyed and you think for this moment like justice is being served. We've watched this guy be a monster and kill people, and it's so and I was as I was watching it I was like thinking about how we talk so much about stakes, like we know where this is going, where are the stakes in something like this, and I was like, well, I guess occasionally we'll have some victories. and then bum bum bum
Mm,
bum bum bum
yes.
bum bum
The
bum.
greatest character in Star Wars rises rises to take
Rise.
control of this situation.
Oh my god, and he sure does. He absolutely owns everyone. He spins this like only a true politician can and is like, "This is terrible. Take him away. He must be punished. Also, this is proof that the clones cannot be trusted to, they just follow orders blindly. We must disband them. We must have a conscripted army." End of episode.
Well, it's my favorite part of this episode, other than the Great One rising
Ugh,
from the depths of the
ugh.
Senate to just completely again manipulate everything and
Jesus.
turn it his way because I didn't see that coming. I had no idea. I was like, how are they going to get out of this? Like
Right?
this is clearly being shown all over, and it's like, of course, the master's got a plan. Of course,
Ugh.
um, but I love the sort of fallout of that when Omega and the Bad Batch and Rex, they're all outside of the Senate, and they're they're just like, wait, what just happened? And Rex is
Yeah.
like, we got fucked. That's what happened. This
Yeah.
the Emperor planned this the entire time, like the
Mhm.
entire time. This is what he wanted. So all this shit we did it for him.
Yep. A little piece of we watch a little piece of Omega die in that
Yeah.
moment.
Everything is proceeding as I have foreseen it. Yes.
Oh
Yes.
god.
Yes.
Ooh.
Emperor Palpatine, yeah, Palpatine, I love this character. He's my
Yeah.
all-time favorite because I love a great villain. And I think we had maybe discussed this would be a great thing. Is Emperor Palpatine the greatest sort of villain in sort of at least pop culture media,
Hmm.
in terms of like mainstream villainy kind of thing, and whether it's Star Trek or Star Wars or Lord of the Rings or whatever that kind of stuff is, Marvel. Um, and I definitely think he is, because everything he does, we're not going to talk about Rise of Skywalker, but everything he does, everything that doesn't count. None of that counts. Uh, Everything he does is deliciously, perfectly evil, and he gets his way by completely fucking over the hero. The heroes do what
Yeah.
they need to do, and they can never think like 3 steps ahead of him,
Yeah. Yeah.
and he just manipulates everybody so well. It's just, oh god, he's so good. He's so good.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. This is why Palpatine is such an imposing enemy. This is why, with a galaxy of wizards, he is still able to, for a while, hold on to power in this way because he has two superpowers. He's like the ultimate space wizard on the dark side, but he also has a very particular set of skills, and that he is a masterful politician. So
Yeah,
he is able to manipulate in terms he doesn't just wield power, he doesn't just intimidate, but he is able to like absolutely manipulate everything and see the way that the world works that other people who are not like deep in just like the pit of politics don't. And so that's it's that combination of things that makes him such a terrifying like and powerful sort of villain in this world. It's interesting, right? Because he actually, in a
yep,
way, embodies the things like when we talk about Star Wars. Like, there's two camps. There's like the people that love the political intrigue, and then there's people who just want the action scenes. But he actually embodies both of those pieces.
yes. And I think a lot of people don't realize that because if people have not watched Clone Wars,
Right.
they
They
might
just see
see
these lightning fingers.
yeah,
Yeah.
they see a
Hmm.
little bit in Revenge of the Sith, where when he, that brief scene like fighting Mace Windu and stuff. But you see him do some shit in Clone Wars. You're like,
Yeah.
wow. I mean, I now I
Yeah.
understand why Yoda couldn't take this guy out. Now
Yeah.
I get it. Now I understand. And and his whole arc is so good because he's just a human. Right, that's the
Right.
thing, and Darth Sidious's whole plan of the ultimate plan, like I need to live forever because I'm in a human body. I'm only going to live so long. I'm not like, another species like a Yoda.
Yeah.
Yoda species live 900 years. Well, yeah, then I can rule for 900 years. I'm going to die. I have a
Right.
finite amount of time here, and I need to manipulate everything in order to, keep me alive going forward. They botched it with They botched it in the sequel trilogy. But the
Mhm.
idea and the concept
Yeah,
is brilliant. You know,
yeah,
it's and I think that's where we're all going. All this clone stuff is leading
yeah,
to your Snokes and all that shit that
yeah.
was in the
Do
sequels.
you think in the way that the Clone Wars fixed the prequel series, that whatever's happening with this clone stuff in Mandalorian will be able to fix the Last Jedi or the Rise of Skywalker, sorry.
Ah, you know, I think it could give
Skepticism.
it can't do anything to fix Rise of Skywalker. What I think it could do is give greater context to the story they were trying to tell in Rise of
Mhm,
Skywalker.
mhm.
And if I can get behind the greater story, because even before this, even pre, canon days, in the 80s and 90s when oh, why am I blanking on the author's name? The quote unquote sequel, the books that were written to sequel after Return of the
Yes.
Jedi, that all involved
Yes.
clones. That all involved Sidious coming back via clone bodies and things of that nature. A lot of comic books dealt with that. So this is a thing. This is a story beat that Star Wars fans can get behind. It's just you do this stupid thing where you're like, canon. This is what's canon now, and you jettison the stuff that people have come to accept and are like okay with, and you change it to something completely different, and you botch it. There's a natural skepticism. How are you going to dig yourself out of this one? How are you going to dig yourself? Like I can tell you, the moment I hated Rise of Skywalker, it was
Oh.
the opening crawl. The opening crawl where it was like I can't remember the lines, but it was like the dead speak, and Palpatine announces to the entire galaxy that he's back. Right? I'm like, Palpatine wouldn't do that. Palpatine would not announce his presence like that. He manipulates
No.
everything from the shadows and fucks it from inside.
Yeah.
He announces himself once. I mean, once he has complete control is when he announces himself. He's not going to sit on Exegol, announce everything, and let a whole rebellion build up to try to fight him. That's not. I mean, it was a fundamental problem with the character, just like how they screwed up Luke Skywalker. It's a fundamental betrayal of the character because when Luke Skywalker finally gets Darth Vader, Anakin, to turn against the Emperor, that is what makes Luke Skywalker the greatest hero. That it wasn't Luke Skywalker defeating the Emperor. He did not defeat the Emperor. It was the humanity that he brought out in his dad, and his dad
Yeah.
kills the Emperor. And when you change that for a quick, oh, well, we don't know what to do with the third movie. Let's just bring the Emperor back. People like the Emperor, right? Matthew likes the Emperor. He'll love it. Fuck that. No, because the Emperor's story ends with Return of the Jedi. That's where it
Yeah.
should have ended.
Mhm. Yeah, no, I totally agree. Like those they really botched those sequels here. Like you will get no pushback from me about the sequel.
Yeah.
I enjoyed the first one. The other two not so much. Not so much.
Yeah.
All right. There is one more plot beat that I accidentally skipped afterwards in which in the aftermath of Palpatine's just absolute ownage of the world. Uh
I am the Senate.
yeah. Echo says goodbye to the Bad Batch. He has
Oh
this
yeah,
this has been building for a while now. Like he has been struggling with like he doesn't want to just bop around the galaxy like doing stuff with the Bad Batch. He wants to actually do something for his brothers. He needs a cause. Like that is something that drives him. And so he sees the opportunity to go with Rex, especially now more than ever. His brothers need him, and so he's going to go and do something
yeah.
heroic, I'm sure.
Because he's Echo's not actually one of the Bad Batch in the
No.
sense. He's just
Mm-mm.
a normal clone that
Yeah.
basically has a bunch of tech augments
You've
on him.
been Robocopped.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know, it was kinda sad to see Echo go, and I mean, I don't think it's the last we'll see of him,
Oh, he'll
obviously.
be back.
Yeah, but,
He'll be back.
there's sort of that goodbye between him and Omega I thought was actually pretty sad. I mean, I also was pretty gutted by what I had just seen, so maybe I was, like, set up to be sad about it.
No,
But
I
I'm
think it's
like
sad because you have that moment where Echo previously tells her, because he tells Hunter like, "Hey man, look," I don't remember his exact line, but it was basically kind of like, look, it was a mistake to bring her on this ship, sort of thing. And Omega hears it, right? And then they have that whole moment where he's like, look, I wouldn't change anything. I apologize. Like, no, we would. still take you and I would still do it. So the
Yeah.
relationship's been building between them.
Yeah.
And it's sad. And I'm sitting here thinking, I'm like, are we slowly seeing the dissolution like of the Bad Batch because Crosshair's gone, Echo's
Yeah.
gone? Like,
Yeah.
what's next? Are is this show slowly splintering them all away from each other, and then they're eventually going to have to come back? Because ultimately,
Yeah.
my whole thing is like, where does this show go? Like, what is the end game for this show? And
Mhm.
I don't really know what that is. I could turn into a show about treasure
Oh
every week
god,
or
I hope
something,
not.
but I don't think it ends well for the Bad Batch. I can't imagine. Maybe a few of them get to just retire off on some outer rim
Right.
planet and live a like the hunter wants to live a normal life somewhere as a farmer. Well, I don't know how he would hide himself with that skull tattoo on his face, but
Oh my god.
but yeah, I don't know what the end game is. I understand like the show seems to be providing context to
Yeah.
why things happen. Like, well,
Yes.
why what happened to the clones? Like,
Yeah.
why are the stormtrooper initiative and like why did that happen? All right, I think this is a fantastic way to tell that story because that was always like, well, it's
Yeah.
unclear. Why would the Empire do this? Well, now it makes perfect sense why the Empire would do this.
Right.
Um, but where does the show go? I don't know. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
Do
it
you have an
could
end
just
game in mind? Like,
I
how
mean,
would you like to see this end?
well, I think what makes me curious is how you're talking about how you think Omega is force sensitive. If she's force sensitive, what's the narrative purpose of that? Beyond it just being like a cool thing, like, hey, she's force sensitive. There's a reason that she would be written that way. So there I would imagine that the end game has something to do with that. But as far as we know, we haven't seen them show up anywhere else, right? So they would either have to end poorly or like Ezra it off into space with Thrawn, you know? So I think that the story that, at least in this season, that Filoni is really interested in talking about is like veteran affairs, which is what
Yeah,
I love so much about Andor is how it like they're telling kind of this really great sci-fi tale, but there's underpinnings of real world issues that he's trying to talk about. And in this one, I think he's very interested in, like I said, veteran affairs because there's such real parallels to the way that veterans are treated after they're no longer seen as, a valuable resource to a country. Like,
yeah,
um, and they're just like kind of cast aside. And these are the kinds of callous debates that are had about them, about money and blah, 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 blah.
yeah,
And so what is the end game of that kind of story? I guess like with Andor, we know the end game is this is what a rebellion looks like and this is how it forms and we know how it resolves. So if you're telling that kind of story, what are you and we know that the clones are not going to be in the movie. So that's going to end badly in some way.
yeah. Because
So
they're
I
gonna
don't really
die
know.
sooner than everybody, right?
Yeah.
They will die. Um, and I think I don't know. Did they say that the Bad Batch ages at the same rate as all the other clones? I would imagine.
They have not said
Okay,
that, but I think you could argue that they wouldn't though because they also are not
they're different.
they're
Yeah,
not
because
chipped, they're not yeah. Seem to have quite a bit more free will. I mean,
they
although
all
the
seem to
clones
be the
do have free
same
will.
age as the other clones.
Right.
So I don't know. But yeah, the cynic in me says that there's a underlying narrative thread here that has not been addressed at all, and that is Omega is Boba Fett's sister,
Yes.
essentially.
Yeah.
And are they going to bring her at some point into Mando continuity, right? Boba Fett's flying around. You cannot tell me that they are never going to have Boba Fett meet his sister ever. Like
Yeah.
to me that just seems like, now I don't know if I necessarily want that to happen, but they've made a big point that, oh yeah, it's Boba Fett's sister. At some
Yeah.
point they're going to meet. Now I don't know
Yeah.
how that happens. So I think she survives through all this. I just don't know what she's doing. Or maybe she's force sensitive, but she never becomes like Jedi level, right? Because no one's trained her. She doesn't know really how to do any of that stuff.
Mm.
Um, I don't know. I
I
just
mean,
don't know how this show ends.
I'd love to see her sail off with, Fee and like go look for treasure. But I think we've seen so much about her character and how she has to, like, she can't see an unjust, she cannot leave an injustice alone. She has to
Yeah.
always go into the fight. So I don't know. Maybe they'll make space. I mean, the rebellion is big. Maybe she's in the rebellion and we just haven't seen her because she's off screen, So
So
maybe
how
she
old is
joins.
she? Is she like 10? Like how old is she in this
I mean,
show?
I think she's the same age as like roughly the same age as like all of the Padawans that survived um
So she's
Order 66.
probably 14,
12? I was thinking 12.
12 to 14 years old.
Yeah.
So fast forward, because this is shortly after, Order 66. It was 19 years that from Order 66 to when the Empire fell, essentially, when
Yeah.
Palpatine died. So add 19 years, so what, she'd be in her early 30s? How old would
Well, I
she
mean,
be?
she'd be a
Oh, no.
few years younger than Ahsoka.
Okay, because I'm just trying to think, like, how old would she be at the Mando verse? Mando's 5 years after Return of the Jedi. So we're talking about
Oh my
roughly
god.
25 years. So she'd be 40
Divide
ish.
by the Force and multiply by Grogu.
Yeah. I think she'd be in her late 30s, early 40s.
Yeah.
So I think it totally makes sense that she could appear, although
Yeah.
Tamora Morrison looks way older than that. But
Right.
gosh, maybe she becomes, an early. Well, no, because she'd be too old to be a Jedi at that point, like in her 40s. That's that's pretty old.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess it's,
I think she probably is somewhere in the rebellion. As would be my guess. Like, you know how it's in Rebels where there's just like the group of like clone daddies that are cruising around in like a Winnebago together. Like, I
yeah,
imagine that she's doing that with the surviving members of the Bad Batch. Whoever makes it.
yeah, cool.
Whoever
Well,
Crosshair doesn't take out.
yeah, I'm looking forward to finding out the answer to those various questions. Yeah,
Mhm.
and Crosshair. When am I going to get Crosshair?
I
I'm
mean,
missing Cross. He had that amazing episode where
yeah.
it's just him, and we
Yeah.
haven't seen him since.
Are you caught up past you have not seen the 2 episodes after this, so
No,
potentially he could be in these. How many episodes are left? Is it just 2 or is it 4?
I think they're doing 16 total episodes. So
16. Hell
because I
yeah.
think the first season was 16. I think this one's 16 as well. So yeah, and this was such a, like, this is almost like a mid-season finale, basically, this
Oh,
episode 8,
yeah.
and it's just kinda like, where the fuck do they go from here?
Right.
Because it's like, okay, we've wrapped up why the stormtroopers are now a thing. What's the next big, like, how does this season end? Like, what is the big holy shit moment? Last season, yeah, they blow up Camino. Camino's destroyed. Crosshair chooses the Empire over his brothers.
Right.
We have a mid-season here.
Right.
The Emperor Palpatine, does his business and shows everyone why he's the greatest character in the world. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know how
Yeah.
this one ends. Like, I don't know what to see where the season is building up to now.
I mean, this is the problem with setting a story in this period of time, right? Like, it's guaranteed to be dark.
Yeah,
It's guaranteed to have a sad ending. So, like, how do you find a happy, kid-friendly
yeah.
ending in this time period?
Also,
Yeah.
but we didn't even mention Bail Organa's in
Oh,
these
yeah.
episodes, and he's great. He's
Yeah,
great in
Deep
these.
Throat Organa, who's
Yeah.
just like, "Follow the money."
Yes, follow the money. Very, very all the president's men. That's what that's what it is. Um,
But yeah,
but yeah, I would say for anyone listening to this, episodes 7 and 8, season 2 of Bad Batch, I think these are the 2 best
10 out of
episodes.
10. 10 out of 10.
2 best
So good.
episodes of Bad Batch that,
Mhm.
um, and I think that, even though you get that great pop at the end with Emperor Palpatine 8, I still think episode 7 is superior because I think I love I love that moment when the clones, when Chuchi goes in, she's got like the beer in her hand and she's just one of the boys, like, hey, just tell me your problems. I'll get it written. I'll make sure that Rampart gets it written into his bill. And what's happening here? And I love, like, the guys like, we just want to fight. We don't
Right.
want anything. We just want to fight. There's all these,
Mhm.
Saw Gerreras popping up all over the place. Let us go fight, fight, fight. And I love that. So, like,
Yeah.
she's a great politician too, trying to just calm these guys down and and get their side and what they would want. And it's very remnant. Like George Lucas sort of designed the Republic and the Empire and these politics based on the ancient Roman sort of society when the Republic fell with Julius Caesar and all that stuff like that.
Mhm.
And one of the big things in ancient Rome was whenever the generals and the consuls would go out with their armies, when they would come back, they'd say, because the armies were not allowed to go into the city limits of Rome. They were never
Right.
allowed to go in. So it was like they would go in from the Senate and they would say, we need land and resources and money for my soldiers. We won the
Yeah.
wars for you. Now you've got to provide land and money
Yeah.
for our soldiers. And that is really shown in this in kind of a quote unquote modern context where it's like, hey,
Mhm.
they need something. They don't got much. They don't even got long to live, right? They're only
Right.
going to live another 10 years. Give them
Right.
something.
Right.
But yeah,
Yeah.
10 out of 10, perfect
It's
episodes.
almost
I love
like
these.
they need a VA or something like that that is well funded,
Yeah,
is what
yeah.
you're saying.
Yes,
Interesting.
yes, yes.
Interesting.
Well
Again.
funded with someone who's competent in
Mm,
charge. So,
mm, hey. Mm.
so that's it, everyone. That's our 4 episode catch up on the Bad Batch. Definitely
Yeah.
check out. All these episodes are good, but 7 and 8 are clear
Mm,
standouts within the
mwah.
series as a whole.
Yes.
We'll be back on Saturday with our
Yes.
review of season or episode 1 of The Mandalorian. And then we will follow that up at some point with catching up with the other Bad Batch
Yeah.
episodes.
Yep. Next
So,
Wednesday, maybe.
all right.
We'll get it. We'll get caught up. We'll get caught up. We'll do it. We'll do it.
For sure. For sure. So, all right, everyone. May the force be with you. Emperor Palpatine is the greatest.
I don't think you get to say both. You gotta pick
I could say both.
I don't know. Call it shenanigans. Bye, everybody.